lacrosse fans. Welcome back to episode number 4 of Lacrosse Unlimited's Sticks and Picks podcast. I'm your host, Will Petchnig, alongside co-host Jake Fox. Today's guest talks about his hectic minor lacrosse travel experiences. He explains how special it is to play in Orangeville at the Tony Rose Memorial Sports Center, also known as the Bunny Barn. He talks about his incredible NCAA Division I lacrosse career and his young professional career. Our guest is an STX athlete, and you can find the best STX heads at lacrosseunlimited.com. Lacrosse Unlimited offers you the best equipment, apparel, and lacrosse footwear since 1990. Be sure to check out their website for all your lacrosse needs. Here's a little tip for lacrosse fans before we get started. Our guest will explain why it's not the best idea to climb fences alone at night. Here we go, episode number 4. He's from Port Elgin, Ontario. He grew up playing in the Owen Sound Minor Lacrosse Association. He represented Owen Sound and Team Ontario at minor nationals, played 5 years in Junior A with the Orangeville Northmen, and one of the best face-off guys to ever play in the Ontario Lacrosse Junior A League. A 2012 Minto Cup champion, a 2-time team captain for Vermont's NCAA Division I lacrosse team, along with being a 2-time NCAA All-American lacrosse player. He holds the Vermont men's lacrosse scoring record with 149 goals. The 4th overall pick in the National Lacrosse League draft to the Buffalo Bandits in 2018. He was named the 2019 NLL All-Rookie team, and he's a current Archers lacrosse player in the PLL and current member of the Major Series Lacrosse Six Nations Chiefs and current member of the Buffalo Bandits, Ian Mackay.
Wow, I don't know if I've had my tires pumped that well in a while. Appreciate that.
I was gonna say we gotta give you a little boost before we kind of bring you down a little bit, you know?
Yeah, perfect. That's what I need.
All right, so we're going to kind of just dive into things here. Obviously, being from Port Elgin, it's not the biggest lacrosse hotbed in Ontario, but you grew up playing your minor lacrosse in Owen Sound, and how did you kind of get involved with the game of lacrosse?
Lacrosse always been in my family. My uncle, Jim Moss, he played about 10 years in the NLL. While I was growing up, he played with Albany. And then he moved out to San Jose when Albany moved out there, and then finished off in Colorado. So growing up watching him play, going to games, he was always on a West Coast team for the most part. So it was always hard to see him play. So whenever he was in Toronto or Buffalo, we were always making the trips as a family. And but growing up, it was kind of back and forth. I would do one summer baseball, one summer lacrosse. Usually my major year I was playing lacrosse. My minor year was baseball up until I was probably about 14 or 15. And then from there, just kind of stuck with it and ran with it. But like you said, Port Elgin, there's no lacrosse there. The closest is Owen Sound. So every summer I was playing lacrosse. I was making a half hour, 45-minute drive down the road to just to practice and to play. So.
Owen Sound, I'd say it's kind of ssimilar to like Gloucester. Nepean had some A teams, so that's a little different. But we were kind of what were you guys mostly B, C, D kind of growing up?
Yeah, early on we were always C, and then as we got older, we got up to B. I think we actually missed A my last year midget by like 1 or 2 rankings. So each year we would kind of move up the rankings a bit. I know midget, my last year midget, we made it to the B finals. And ended up losing to, I think it was Akwesasne. So that was the closest I ever got. But
so growing up in Owen Sound, it's obviously different, I would say, probably for you. Talk about kind of like the travels you guys had to do, man. Like that's pretty ridiculous for a center like that, and have developed some pretty good lacrosse players over the past, including yourself. And traveling from there to go to tournaments to get to the high levels isn't easy.
Yeah, I mean, lucky for me, we had a lot of kids from the Port Elgin area playing my age. Guys like Garrett Lewis, his brother Clint Lewis, Dave Mercer. There's a handful of guys. So we would split up driving between the families. And then if we were doing tournaments, sometimes there'd be 4 or 5 of us in a hotel room wherever we were. So, but it was good. Like I said, we had those families. It made for a lot of fun road trips, a lot of good bonding with those guys. But even a home game was basically an away game for us. So
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of travel went into your minor lacrosse career, but I think it's definitely helped you out. And going into your junior lacrosse, you probably played for the closest center to Orangeville, and you were drafted by the Orangeville Northmen. What was it like to play in the Bunny Barn for home games every day?
So my first exposure to the Northmen would have been the Minto Cup in Brampton, and I think that was '08 or '09. And I have a lot of family in Brampton, so we went and watched them in their final series against Brampton in the finals, and that was the most back and forth, one of the best series of lacrosse I've ever seen. And from there, I knew I wanted to play for Orangeville, and at the time they had Adam Jones, and he was like head over heels their best player, and he was an own sound kid. And at that time, I was getting called up to play junior B and own sound a little bit. And some of their coaching staff, Matt McLeod and Mike McLeod, had played for Orangeville. So they had kind of gotten my ear a little bit about Orangeville. And I started talking to them a little bit. And anyone that's gone through the junior draft in Ontario knows that you get a handful of calls from a few select teams. I won't name any, but you get your phone's ringing quite a bit. And I was just advised to let them know that I wasn't going to be playing junior A. I wanted to stay close to home and play own sound. And it kind of worked out. And I was actually playing a hockey game the day of the draft. And once the game was over, my phone was blowing up a decent amount. And that's how I found out that I was drafted at Orangeville. But couldn't have been happier to play. I played all 5 years there. Ended up moving there and building my last 3 years. Was lucky enough to win a Minto Cup my second year and played with some pretty incredible players. And one of the best barns to play in junior lacrosse. So it was a pretty cool experience.
It's funny how it often happens that, you say, I did the same thing where, you know what, I think I'm just going to stay home, play junior B, I'll be traveling. And then all of a sudden, oh, look, I go to the team that is closest to me. That's the easiest trip.
Yeah, it's funny how that works. But like I moved there in my last 3 years. And then my first 2 years, we actually had Hayden Smith and Robbie Hellier and Matt Ecclestone, I think was his name. I'm gonna butcher his name, but I would drive to Owen Sound, meet those guys, and then they would drive to Orangeville my first 2 years. So luckily we had a pretty talented team. We didn't practice that much. So we were only going for weekends usually for games, but when you made the trip, there was always a couch open and you ended up staying for a week at a time.
So I'd say the Bunny Barn is probably, well, also known as Tony Rose, but everyone just calls it the Bunny Barn, is probably one of the most famous arenas for junior A lacrosse players. You want to kind of give an explanation to how it got its name and why the Orangeville boys love it so much?
Well, the original name, Tony Rose, we'll start with that, is I'm sure everyone knows Nick Rose, current goalie for the Toronto Rockets. His father, who actually ended up passing away, was named after him. But it's been renamed the Bunny Barn by most people. And in the summer, mid-July into August, as the season goes on and it starts to get a little hotter, a lot of people like to wear as little clothes as possible, and Orangeville's got a pretty good crop of people there. So I'm usually during warm-ups or when you're running on the floor in between periods, you got to take a glance down at the away end, see who's sitting up there, and see who's there watching.
I love it. Very politically correct of you. Let's talk about your 2012 Minto. You kind of got to Orangeville right at the end of its dynasty, and we're lucky enough to be one of the few players who are able to say they won a Minto championship. Obviously, every kid gets 5 shots at it mostly, and you were able to get that your second year. So talk about that team and what made them so special, because you guys were stacked that year, and you had a hell of players who a lot of them now are top-end players in pro.
Yeah, our team was, I think going into that year, we almost had the idea that if we didn't win, something went wrong. And actually we started off pretty rocky, and now being in Buffalo and living with Dane Smith, he was on the Kitchener team then, and I think we lost both of our games that year to Kitchener, and so that's his claim to fame against us. But that team was incredible, and I think it starts with just the winning pedigree they had before I got there. Guys like Jeremy Noble, Jason Noble, Dylan Ward, Jordan Critch. I mean, the list goes on. They were all part of the team as first, second year guys when they started their run winning Mintos. So for them, I think there was something like 4 for 5 in Ontario championships and 3 for 4 in Mintos. So, I mean, that right there just goes to show that it was a winning group, and I was just kind of lucky enough to jump on and grab onto some coattails and get myself a ring as well. But it was a really fun year. I think we only ended up losing something like 6 games that entire season. And then we had one close game in the Minto against Whitby, went to overtime. And then we played Coquitlam in the finals. And I think the first game was like something like 18-4. So we kind of knew then that we just had to show up and make sure we played a good game, and we were going to walk away champions there.
What was the Minto celebration like? Because people got to remember the junior age group is from 16 to 21. So you got a huge gap in terms of, maturity levels and everything like that. And you, I guess, were 17, possibly turning 18 around that time. So tell what was that night like, winning that championship?
It was pretty cool because the Minto was in Whitby, so we had a lot of fans there watching. And then after the game, the families, everything comes on the floor, celebrate, pictures, all that. And that carries over into the dressing room. And I don't think we left the arena for almost 2 hours after the game. We had coolers on coolers of alcoholic beverages in there. And I think we ended up going out and drinking on the floor. There was the signs on the boards. Guys were ripping those off and bringing them back for memorabilia. And we ended up busing back from Whitby to Orangeville, which is, I don't know, an hour and a bit maybe. And I remember walking on, I was being a younger guy, I still kind of stuck around and helped clean up and make sure everything was good to go before we left. And the lid of the Minto was left behind. So I walked on wearing that as my hat and calling myself Lord Minto. So we had that, the bus ride home. And then when we got home, anyone that's played in Orangeville or has any involvement with Orangeville and has played with either Cody McMahon or Jamie McMahon knows they got a pretty good party house. So we ended up going there with all our family and friends. And same thing, if you've ever played or been in Orangeville, usually you're staying up after a win until you see the sun come up. So we partied pretty good, and I think it ended up lasting probably a week afterwards.
I thought you were going to say you ended up at the Boston Pizza.
I mean, at that time, I think it was still called TJ's Hangar that they had there. But I think every year I played in Orangeville, that's TJ's. I'm sure it's had names before that, but TJ's is what I remember my first couple of years. And then every year after that, it had a new name and new owner. So Boston Pizza ended up becoming kind of the staple to go to.
Yeah, you definitely were lucky to play for such a historic Junior A franchise in Canada, and they're actually just coming off another Minto Cup championship in 2019, led by Donville. So, I mean, they've had a lot of good players come out of there, and they're going to be a great team for many years to come. We're going to transition to field lacrosse here. I know you started field lacrosse at a later age. Can you kind of tell me how you became involved in the field game and kind of talk about the Hill Academy experience?
Yeah, so I didn't start playing field until my junior year of high school, so grade 11. And I'd played Team Ontario box my major midget year, and one of our coaches was coaching edge, and just kind of threw it in my ears like, hey, we have tryouts coming out. Love to have you out there. I think you'd be a good field player. So I was like, why not? Might as well give it a try. And ended up going out. And if anyone who's played for Edge knows that you have to have a certain GPA to be able to play and all that. So ended up making one of the teams. So that was kind of my introduction to it. And then actually, I think it was a couple weeks after that, the former Reebok Top 100, which is turned into the All Canada Games now. Brody Merrill being an Orangeville guy, an Orangeville alum, that was my first exposure to him. And he had invited me to the Top 100. And then after that, invited me to the Hill. And I ended up doing my halfway through my senior year, grade 12, I went to the Hill and then did a full PG year there as well. Actually went my senior year, I showed up to the first practice as a midi, and who was it? Coach Queener told me if I showed up again, I wouldn't play unless I had a pole, because they were trying to get me ready for the U19 Worlds in Finland that summer. So I played my senior year as a pole, and then that summer with Team Canada as a pole, and then switched back to midi as a PG, because I'd already committed to the University of Vermont to play midfield. So had a quick stint as a pole, and then tried to chase my offensive dreams as best I could.
Talk about your choice to go to Vermont, because I mean, a lot of guys are going there now, but I think at the time you were going there, it wasn't too Canadian heavy as it is now. They've done a great job of growing their program and everything, and you know, your career there was a big reason why a lot of Canadians go there and have success now. So kind of talk about choosing Vermont and what led you to that.
It was right during my first tournament with Edge. We were at Hofstra, and that's kind of when I realized I might be able to play college lacrosse. Started getting some letters after that tournament. And then in Orangeville, I played with AJ Masson. You guys probably know his brother, Zach. But AJ was at Vermont at the time, and the coach, Ryan Curtis, had come to Ontario to recruit and to watch him play, and then liked how I played just based off the box game. Invited me to come visit. It was my first D1 visit, my first D1 offer once the visit was over. And if anyone's been to Burlington, Vermont, it's an incredible place. So it's pretty easy decision from there. And at the time, being so new to field, I didn't know how many more offers I might get. And I wanted to go Division I if I was able to, obviously. So once that offer was there, I kind of jumped all over it. But definitely don't regret that decision at all. Had some of my best lacrosse years and just years in general there.
Yeah, I mean, I know Curtis pretty well. He coached my brother in high school after he left Vermont and decided to go to Westminster. And he's a great guy and he's a great coach. And his playing career kind of goes a little unheard of compared to what he was as a coach. But he was an unreal player. And I think a lot of guys would say kind of the same thing that you and I are saying, that he did a really good job at Vermont. Yeah,
he was awesome. He, like you said, I've only really heard stories of his playing career, playing with the Cannons, and we've tried finding video and any footage we could, but nothing really comes up at all. There's been some stuff come up since where I like to bug him on Twitter about it, but he was an awesome coach. He ended up being almost like a second dad to me while I was there. It really liked to recruit Canadians. Played and when I was there, was 2 new assistants were there my freshman year, and the offensive coach was Pat March, who is now at Syracuse and at Princeton before that. So if you follow college lacrosse, you know Princeton's had a pretty incredible offense the last few years, and Syracuse was well on the way to having a really good season. So we were kind of the test run for March his first couple of years into college coaching, and I had them for 3 years before Curtis ended up leaving, and each year we ended up getting better and better. And then by the time my junior year, we made it to the conference finals, ended up losing to Hartford in a shootout 17-16. And then he ended up going to Westminster where he's been since, but he was awesome at Vermont.
You unfortunately got hit with the injury bug a little bit while at Vermont, led you to a 5th year, but talk about that, talk about being a redshirt and the path back, because basically once you came back, man, it seemed like you were on a mission. You absolutely started ripping it up and became a college highlight reel. I remember seeing highlights of you scoring between your legs or some shit every weekend or week on the NCAA top 5 or something. it kind of exposed your name a little more, especially typically Vermont. It's not being talked about out there on the weekly games when you have, I'm going to boost Hopkins and Duke and all these schools. And, Vermont doesn't get talked about as much. And then all of a sudden you and Frenchie and a couple Millie are all of a sudden, just feeding highlight tapes for NCAA. So talk about that and kind of how that led to the growth of Vermont and kind of your exposure personally as well.
Yeah. So each year I was there, we got better. Like I said earlier, my freshman year, we didn't even make the American Youth Tournament. Sophomore year, we ended up making the tournament, but lose in the semis. Junior year, we make it to the championship, end up losing. And then so the injury, I broke my foot, and it was, I don't know exactly when it was, but I remember starting to have foot pain my summer going into my junior year. And when I got to school, I got it looked at. Nothing really popped up. They weren't really too sure. So I kept going. And then about halfway through my junior season, I saw like a foot specialist and had a broken sesamoid bone, which is like the size of a pea in the bottom of your foot. And it basically felt like I was stepping on a stone 24/7. So they wanted to put me in a cast right there. And I was like, well, we're halfway through the year. We're having a good year. Like, maybe I'll do it in the summer or something instead. And then got used to the feeling and the pain, and ended up keep playing anyways. I didn't go home that summer. I stayed in Vermont just to treat it and try to get it as best I could. And then senior year, I came back from Christmas break early to train, and I took a step the wrong way, and the worst pain came back. And that was Coach Fife's first year with us. And I remember, I'll never forget the look on his face when I walked into his office with our trainer asking to do a redshirt year and get surgery and fix this. And because I'd had good years leading up to that, and he was a new coach in a program. Milligan and I were working really well with each other. But I walked in and I remember, like I said, his face, I think his jaw dropped all the way to the ground, and he tried to think of every possible solution to have me play, and whether it was just games and not practice during the week or whatever it may be. As at that point, I knew I was going to play box lacrosse after school. So I wanted to take care of it then while I could at school, when you have all the facilities and the treatment options and all that. And then, like you said, going into my fifth year, we had a really good season, and I knew it was my last year, and I'd started to get pretty confident with my game. And we had a really good freshman crew coming in. So they helped out. And then the junior class, I guess the class below me, my redshirt year, they had a really good class. I think their class, almost everyone played every year. And we started winning, kept winning, started getting rankings. I think we were undefeated in our out-of-conference schedule. I think we got ranked 12th at one point. It was the highest. Had like a 1-goal game against Virginia. Like you said, we had a really good season and made it to the finals again against Albany. And that was the year that Fieldsy and Tahoka and all those guys were ranked number 1, and they had TD Ireland still. So we weren't seeing the ball much in that final game. I think the score was like 19-5 or something like that. It was just a brutal way to go out, but it was a really good season overall. We ended up breaking a ton of records, so it was pretty cool.
Connor Van Ryn, one of your teammates at Vermont, you got anything to share about that guy?
He was actually beside me in the locker room, and I remember he was at the Hill as well, and we were playing intramural hockey, and I'm like, someone else told me that he committed, and I'd never talked to him. And I remember going up to him on the bench and be like, man, like, congrats. It's gonna be sweet. Like, couple Canadians there, whatever. He's like, yeah, thanks. Just like no emotion, nothing. I was like, you just like committed to play Division I lacrosse. Like, be a little more excited.
Yeah, he had the in junior lacrosse, he had the same kind of like no emotion. So we ended up calling him Dexter Morgan, and that name kind of stuck with him ever since.
I wish I would have known that while we were there. I would have got it going in Vermont too. But in the locker room, he's same quiet, stone faced. Like, if someone did something that was like maybe questionable, he would just like instantly judge you as hard as possible. Like, he would show up too, and he just like would throw it. He's a smart kid. I forget what program he was in, but he was in like the hardest classes. He always came from class and then left practice to go to class. And his backpack was always in my locker, and his clothes were always everywhere. I was like, I don't know what this guy's deal is, so I'm just gonna keep quiet and maybe just push his stuff over a bit.
Oh, that's awesome. And it's pretty incredible that adversity that you went through and you came back to become an All-American. We're going to have a little bit of fun here. We're going to do our this or that segment. So basically, Jake's going to give you this or that, and you got to answer it. No explanation, as quick as possible.
All right, let's do it.
All right, ready?
I don't think so, but
I'll give it our best go here. All right, we got 3, 2, 1. Bayshore or Bunny Barn?
Bunny Barn.
NLL or PLL?
NLL.
Take every face off and get the crap beat out of you, or serve every bench minor?
Face off.
Better roommate, Dane Smith or Josh Burns?
Neither.
I'll take it. Banditland or Chiefs at crowds?
Banditland.
Yeah. STX head, Omega or Stallion?
It's the new Omega.
Yeah. Sable Beach in the summer or Florida beaches?
What? Sable Beach? Oh, Sable Beach.
Sable Beach.
Sable Beach.
I struggle with English.
Probably go Florida.
Cereal or oatmeal?
Cereal.
Keg or Red Lobster?
Keg.
Score game winner or assist the game winner?
Probably score.
Apple Music or Spotify?
Spotify.
College football or college basketball?
Football.
All right, you're a big Leafs fan, so if you had to cheer for one team, who would it be, the Bruins or the Canadians?
Oh, man. Go Canadians.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Pints in the basement or shots at the bar?
Pints in the basement.
Road hockey or pond hockey?
Pond hockey.
I saw you guys the other day playing a little road hockey out in the parking lot.
Yeah, we invested in some rollerblades, and we got a street ball out there. We just got to find a net and a place to actually go play now.
That's awesome. I'm sure that the fans will enjoy that this or that segment. Sorry. Next thing we're gonna get on to is your NLL career. It's sort of young into it. You're a 4th overall draft pick to the Buffalo Bandits in 2018. Can you kind of take us through that experience and being drafted by the historic Bandit organization?
Yeah, so I kind of had an idea that I was going to go to Buffalo because of Dane and Josh. I was playing with them in Chesapeake the summer leading up to the draft, and I was spending a lot of time in Buffalo and hanging out with them. And I mean, without actually knowing for sure, they'd basically told me I was going to end up here. So going into the draft, knowing that they had a 3rd or 4th pick, and with Audie and coming out college and going to the draft, and how hyped up Kluche was as well, kind of had a feeling that I wasn't going to be going top 2, and Buffalo fell right after that. So it's been unreal so far. I've made the move down here. I made the move last season, back here this season, and it's been everything I could dream of so far. And like I mentioned earlier, my uncle playing mainly on the West Coast, Buffalo or Toronto were the only 2 places I could really see him play. And I'll always remember as a kid coming to Buffalo and how crazy the fans here are here, and going down underneath the KeyBank Center and getting to meet him afterwards, and being kind of down around the players and stuff. So being a player now and getting to experience all that, it's kind of come full circle and been pretty cool.
It's kind of ridiculous when you go back and look at that draft, because I believe it was you and then Matty Gilray right after you. And then a couple weeks into the season come by, and then you guys trade and you get Kluge. So you guys basically ended up having 2, 4, and 5 in that draft. Talk about having like you 3 guys who are now basically staples and huge parts of this team, all coming from that same draft year.
So if you look at the year before too, Buffalo is number 1 and gets burned 1st overall. And then our year, the next year, we'll go with your version of it, where I went third and Gilray went fourth, but some other people might say it went other way around. But and then we trade for Kluge. So in 2 years, you get the first, second, third, and fourth overall picks in the draft. So it's been pretty cool. We all live down here too. Gilray and Kluge are roommates here in Buffalo. Josh and Dana are roommates, and then I'm with Chase Fraser. So it's a pretty good crew we have here, and it's a pretty young – we have a good mix. We got a good core of younger guys, and then a really good group of veteran guys like Dane, Steve Priolo, Kevin Brownell, Nick Weiss, guys who have been around the league for a bit and have kind of been through it all. So I think that kind of showed last year too with our championship run, just having that good mix of youth and experience.
Yeah, I screwed that up. My research funds are a little low right now. Let's talk about.
I like that version better, though.
Yeah, I was gonna say again. I love Gilly, but come on now. We all know you should have been up there, right?
Well, I ended up. I'll pump my tires a little bit here. I got Rookie of the Year for the team, so he got picked third. He got picked before me, but I ended up getting Rookie of the Year. So
you went.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, I mean, you've been fortunate now with the Chiefs and now in Buffalo to get to be coached by arguably you could say the best player to play in box lacrosse, or at least, you know, he'd be on the Mount Rushmore of it in JT and John Tavares. Talk about what that experience like. Everyone I've ever talked to about it has been incredible. And actually a JT story is were you there for that game when he suited up in Peterborough?
Yeah, we had like 8 guys.
Yeah, you guys showed up with like 8 or 9 guys, and JT's just like, well, I got my gear in my trunk. I can play. So, you know, he hadn't played lacrosse in probably 4 or 5 years by then. He's out there, and, you know, he got in a little skerfuffle, we'll say, at the end there, which was pretty interesting. But talk about having him as a coach and just kind of what he's like.
Well, so to the Six Nations Peterborough game, we were like wondering who was going to show up. Summer ball, you never know if you're going to end up having a full lineup or not. And he walks in with his hood up, like covering his face so that people can't see him, and like just comes in, starts getting ready, and we're like, nah, he's just taking warm-ups, like no chance. And he's actually out there. I think him, Dane, and Randy were the only guys. Randy Stats were the only guys allowed to play O. Everyone else had to play two-way. So that was was that the game that you and I went?
No, we went later on. We could tell that story though. I got yeah.
No, we're good on that one. But
well, I'll tell it then.
But being able to play for him has been pretty cool. Being a D transition guy, and last year we had the co-head coaches with him and Richie Kilgore. So I didn't think I was going to see him that much with him being so offensive minded, but Byrne ended up going down half the year with an injury. I ended up getting called up to the offense, and he had trust in me right away. I was playing a consistent shift. He was helping me out, sending me film, everything, which was pretty cool and pretty surreal. And now he's the full-time head coach, and he's been a lot more involved with the D end. And it's cool because he sees the floor way differently than we do. So when we're out there in a defensive shift in practice or whatever, he sees something happen, he'll blow it down and be like, all right, well, this is how I see it as an O guy. How come you guys see it this way as a D guy? And we have that conversation as a group, and it's been pretty cool to work with him that way. But I mean, you go out after the game or you're around the arena, even during a game day or open practice, whatever it is, and people are still buying Tavares jerseys and going crazy, getting his autograph. And I mean, his number's up on the Raptors for a reason. So it's been pretty cool to play with him and be around him so far.
It's definitely probably special to be coached by a lacrosse legend in the box world. And you've played in professional field lacrosse as well in the MLL and the PLL. Can you kind of compare those two leagues together, or are they totally different?
I mean, I would say they're pretty different in every aspect. I think I only played 1 year in the MLL, and it was my first year of professional lacrosse, so I only really have it to judge from that. But so far with the PLL, everything's been first class, unbelievable. Anytime there's any issue comes up, it's handled and 4 or 5 people are on it right away. I think the style of field lacrosse they're trying to play is a lot more fun to play, with it being a shorter field, having a shorter shot clock. It's more like box. It's a lot more up and down. You're seeing a lot of guys start to transition to being a two-way midi, playing both ends instead of having that settled control offense, get a shot, lose the ball, whatever it is, and have 2 of the 3 or all 3 guys change and send out 3 new defensive-minded people. So I didn't get a ton of playing time last year. We had some visa issues, and then we started kind of getting into the stretch of things when that got all resolved, and we were trying to make a good push. So I didn't see a ton of time, but I think it was like 5 or 6 games I played in. The travel, everything was just a really good experience.
Yeah, I remember getting to sit next to your mom for a game and talk to her, and I could tell she's your biggest fan. It was a lot. It was really interesting to talk to her. She's a great lady, and she got to obviously that game wasn't the way that we all hoped. I know I went to go watch you, and it's pro, so that stuff happens. But I think with the expansion of the league that we're going to see a lot more Ian this year in the PLL, and that's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, in field, I've been a very offensive-minded player, and not a lot of people know that I had played pole or even played defense and transition and box. So I can see both sides of the field, and I think this year I'm going to try and make a jump to be more of a two-way transition type midi like I play in box. I think it's the way I've played box forever, and with how the PLL is going, being a faster game and stuff, hopefully I can make that transition as well. And I mean, you can't get a breakaway in field, but hopefully create some transition opportunities.
All right. Yeah, no, for sure. That's awesome. And hopefully you can get into that PLL season this year and do well and be successful. So we're going to get into a little bit of fun here. We're going to do our Twitter creep. And for all lacrosse fans, I think you need to give him a follow on Twitter. He's definitely got a very full of content Twitter account, to say the least. So we're going to go back. We're going to go back to December 16th, 2017. You tweeted, "Saw a beautiful lady while driving on the highway today. Made eye contact and smiled at her. She proceeded to play with the ring on her left hand, the one that got away. Her loss."
I mean, I think that the last sentence says it all. Her loss.
I mean, when you have, just so because people will be able to see this, Ian is rocking an incredible handlebar mustache. So I mean, any girl that's willing to turn that down, it's clearly making a huge mistake.
And then we'll go to one more tweet here. Jake's going to show you this on the screen, but on February 14th, 2018, you tweeted Valentine's Day with this picture. Can you kind of explain that for us?
Yeah.
Hold on. No one can see this picture, by the way. We'll post it when we air this. It's a picture of Ian with his arm around complete air and a typed in type box saying possibly you.
So at UVM, one of my teammates, Drew Lewis, his dad is a professional photographer, and he does stuff for all for the Philly sports, the Wings, the Flyers, the Eagles. So he would always photograph our games, and he'd always be on the field afterwards. And most people have buddies on other teams and whatnot, and you always say hi and take a picture or whatever. And we were playing Fairfield that game, and I don't know anyone on Fairfield. So he was taking pictures, and I just kind of yelled, "Mr. Lewis, take a picture," and threw my arm up with no one there. And that picture was actually made by our assistant coach, Brian Kavanaugh. And he's photoshopped everything from a Labatt Blue under there to famous models, whatever it may be, has been under my arm in that picture. And he sent me that. I remember he sent me that a couple days before Valentine's Day, and just kind of was like, "Hey, do what you want with it." So I tweeted it out. I think I've put it out every year on Valentine's Day since. And I get some bites on Valentine's Day, but nothing ends up following through or coming through with it.
Oh, that's a damn shame. You should be. I'm shocked your phone doesn't blow up every Valentine's Day with that picture.
Well, the day of Valentine's Day, I usually now I'm throwing it up on my Instagram story too, and I'll get a couple DM slides, but conversation that usually doesn't last more than a day or two after that.
Especially with those handlebar mustache that you're currently rocking right now, like Jake mentioned earlier.
So, like I said, so I got a couple buddies, reached out to some buddies of buddies, and luckily we got a hold of your roommates, and so
No.
Birdsey wants you to explain how you got stuck in a fence for everybody.
Oh man, so that happened this year. So we had a brutal start to our season, and we ended up having like 2 games in 7 weeks or something like that. We had a game or bye-week game, bye-week game, 2 bye weeks, and then a game. So it was the week leading up. We were playing Halifax, and it was a week leading up to Christmas. Didn't play that weekend, so Dane and I were the only ones left in town, and it was like a full Buffalo sports day. The Sabres played at noon. We went to that game, went to our buddy's house for a little bit, and then we went to one of the bars and we were watching the Bills game. I think it was like a playoff implication game, and if you know Bills Mafia, it's an absolute shit show. So the bars are just packed. Everyone's going nuts. Bills game ends. It's probably 9-10 o'clock. I ended up going home for a little bit, regrouping, gathering my thoughts. Made the decision to go back out for a little bit longer. Met Dane back out because he's a savage and didn't come home at all. And being out all day, my phone ended up dying. So I remember trying to get Ubers, and my phone died during that. And then so I left the bar, tried to just flag down a cab, but you don't know who's a cab, who's an Uber at all. So I was like, all right, screw it. He'll tow it back home. It's a good like 45 minute walk probably. And when you drink, you're invincible. So I ended up getting a light jog on, which probably was a full sprint, and tried to make a cut through like a trolley car way, like where they keep all the trolley cars here. It's right down the road from our place. So I was cutting through this open grass. It's literally 5 minutes from my apartment. It's like a big metal fence, and there's like a diagonal bar. So I like shimmy my way up the diagonal bar. I turn around, hop over, shimmy my way back down a little bit, and I go to hop off, and my foot slips, and I lock my heel, my ankle, and my foot in there.
Jesus.
And I was stuck hanging upside down for a decent length of time, and there was this random dude, like, luckily for me, this random dude was walking by, found me, helped me out, and then some more qualified people showed up and helped me out the rest of the way. But got a pretty good scar on my ankle now, and pretty good story to tell. So
yeah, you could thank Josh for that. And of course, Dane wanted to pipe in because why wouldn't he on you?
Perfect.
Apparently you're in Target one day and you got recognized as something that wasn't a lacrosse player.
Yeah. So outside of my lacrosse, I'm trying to be a full-time lacrosse player like most guys our age is, but outside of lacrosse, I apparently am also an M&T banker here in Buffalo. So it was actually like the first week of quarantine when all the coronavirus started happening, and we were making some impulse purchases to set up our Xbox and our gaming setups because we didn't know how long it would be. And we're in Target, we're walking around. They didn't end up having the cord we were looking for. So we like went and looked at like some board games or something like that. And if you know Buffalo sports, Dane and Josh are big names here and get recognized often. And I'm usually around with them along with Kluch or Gilray, whoever it may be. And we were looking at board games, and one of the workers, he's pushing this big cart, and like something starts to fall over. So I kind of just like helped him like stabilize it. And then Dane walks through, and his attention went right to Dane. He's like, "Oh my God, are you Dane Smith?" And Dane's always so awkward. Dane's just an awkward person in general. Since he told you the story, I'm gonna chirp him now. He's just like an awkward person in general. Like doesn't know how to handle public situations like that. So the guy's like, "Oh, are you Dane Smith?" And he's like, "Yeah, I am." And like, he's like, "Oh, like big Bandits fan, like love the Bandits." And then Josh like walked down the aisle as well. He's like, "Oh, and Josh Byrne, like, no way, like, what's up, guys?" And then he looks at me. He's like, "Sorry, man, like, I don't recognize you." And Dane's like, "Oh, that he's on the team as well. That's Ian Mackay." He's like, "Oh, yeah, I think you work at M&T Bank with my mom." Like completely stone faced, like fully thought that I worked at M&T Bank with his mom. And I was like, "No, I don't think so. Like, I think you have he messed up with either another player or another Ian Mackay." But Dane and Josh just burst out laughing. And then I turned awkward. I was like, "I don't know what to do now." And we ended up walking down the aisle and just all of us just, we like, were laughing for 10, 15 minutes afterwards. It was absurd. So.
Okay, no, that's pretty funny. You can actually thank JP Keeley for getting those stories for us.
Keeley, okay, all right, the notorious.
All right, we're gonna get into the final segment here. It's one that we do every time. It's play until the whistle segment. It's about talking about the lacrosse officials in the game, and we know that especially in Ontario, there's been a lot of abuse towards the officials in the past couple of seasons, and we're trying to help them out and trying to eliminate kind of the abuse that they receive. So we're gonna start off by asking you who your favorite lacrosse referee is and why.
I would have to go with either Hilt or Ecclestone. And ever since junior, they've always just been friendly, personable guys. Later on in my junior career, I was lucky enough to have a letter on my jersey, and you talk to officials more with that privilege, and they were always willing to have conversations with me. And usually they like to talk to the players more than the coaches, because the coaches are usually pretty pissed off. So those two guys have always stuck out to me, and every time I see them, whether it's on the floor or off the floor, always have a good conversation with them. And fortunately, that they're refs in the NLL as well, so you can just see them out on the floor here. So I'd probably go with those two guys.
Yeah, I think that dialogue between players and officials is a big thing to kind of limit the screaming, or I'd say abuse towards officials when you're kind of in a heat of a moment spur. If there was something in lacrosse that you could kind of say that would help reduce the abuse towards the officials, what do you think we as players or coaches could do to kind of help limit that?
I think, especially at a younger age and minor lacrosse, even into junior and senior, a lot of the time referees are volunteers, and they're kids who are currently playing lacrosse, kids who formerly played lacrosse, kids who are trying to make a quick buck if the money's there to be made. So I think just understanding that they're no different than your kids are. They're just trying to help grow the game and help enjoy the game. And I think if parents it's something I wish I did. If parents can get their kids into reffing at a younger age, whether you're a Bantam midget age player and you're reffing novice tykes, the more people that you can get into reffing and understand it, and for them to expand and their families understand it, I think the better off it'll be. But we're in a tough position now, especially this past summer with everything that's gone on, and not a lot of people want to get into it because there's so much abuse of the officials. And I know I've been into even in Port Elgin, I went to watch a hockey game when I was there over Christmas break, and they had a big sign like right when you walk in, just reminding you that officials are people too. They're there trying to help the game, all that. So I think that everything's kind of going in the right direction right now, and hopefully we can put last year behind us pretty quick and get more people involved into reffing.
Yeah, I think you nailed it right on the head there when you said officials are people too, and they just try to help out the game and kind of police it for us. So I think just reminding ourselves to remain calm in those kind of heat of the moment situations is something that we can work on. we really do appreciate you coming on and talking with us here today. And we're wishing you the best of luck with hopefully a shortened major series lacrosse season and potentially an end to the national lacrosse season as well.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on, and I'm excited to see where you guys take this thing. Should be fun.
Thanks, Ian. We're going to have to get your roommates on so you can give us some stories on them, get back at them a little bit.
Yeah, anytime, any stories you need from those guys, let me know. I got picture evidence. I got everything you need.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That's a wrap on episode number 4. We hope the fans learned that it's not the best idea to climb fences alone at night. Thank you to Ian Mackay for coming on with us to tell lacrosse fans about his lacrosse journey so far. Fans, don't forget you can find all your lacrosse needs at lacrosseunlimited.com. A reminder to follow our social media pages on Twitter and Instagram at SticksPicksLax and on Facebook at Sticks and Picks Lacrosse. We will be doing several giveaways through social media that you don't want to miss. Remember to follow all the giveaway instructions for your chance to win some awesome lacrosse items. Our next Play Until the Whistle segment will be this Saturday, featuring one of the most exciting lacrosse officials of all time. We hope you enjoyed episode number 4. Send us a message on social media telling us who you want to hear from.